Welcome to Warcraft Reloaded, a podcast brought to you by Mash Those Buttons, covering World of Warcraft Classic and its community. I'm Bobby, also known as Blazin' Bob, and we're joined once again by Mel, aka Melarina. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Good to hear. Good to hear. And we're joined once again by Table Slam. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me back. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. And first time on the show, I've been trying to get him on the show for a long time. We have Kef. How you doing, Kef?
Hey, good to be here, finally.
Kef's been his schedule just normally doesn't work out with recording, but yeah, we're happy to have him on. He's been with us since phase 2 full time. He's been, he tanked for us in phase 2. He out DPS'd me on the Rogue in phase 3, and now he's back to tanking for us in phase 4. And Rogue tanks are slept on. Like, we're killing it with them, and I think only speedrunners and top end raiders are using Rogue, and they're trying to keep it quiet. So
You don't see a lot of them, and it's a ton of fun, actually.
I think that was the big problem with him early on, is like the kit seemed like it was fine, but like, it just didn't seem like on paper didn't sound very fun. I don't know what it was like to actually play it, but like they clearly have made improvements.
It's a lot more fun now. In Nomer, it was kind of terrible, but it was still like a new experience. So I just did it anyway, but it's a lot more fun now.
yeah, and I mean, it's just like once you get
So
the
much
set
damage.
bonuses and the damage, they are nerfing 20% of the damage, but I mean, they're still really good. And yeah, I think people are just sleeping on it. A lot of people just don't even like realize how good it is. But yeah, well, let's get into the show. So I like to start the show off by thanking our tank patrons at Croxford, Turtle Whale, and Braxton. I'd like to mention we stream the show live on twitch.tv/BlazinBob. BlazinBob. If you want to call in and leave a voicemail, it's 816-1066 or speakpipe.com/Warcraft Reloaded. If you want to find a guide for Rested XP, the link is in the description or the show notes. And you can also go to warcraftreloaded.com/RestedXP. And then what else? Okay, so we're going to start off with the comment of the week. Then we're going to go on to voicemails. We got a bunch this week, so we're not going to be able to get to all of the voicemails. Then we're going to talk about maybe what we've been doing this week besides PTR. Then we're going to get into news. We'll talk PTR there, and then at the end we're going to discuss the fan-made WoW Classic survey that went out that me and Josh Corbett and Eben Hart and Hammer Dance tried to promote, and we got like 3.5K responses on it. So it'd be pretty cool to see the results of that. Some of them are a little bit surprising. So yeah, that's going to be the show. So with that being said, who wants to read the comment of the week?
I'll read it.
Oh, nice. Got a new blood.
All right. From Ludi Dobry. This is the only hope for 40-man raiding. If it doesn't work, then we won't get 40-man raids. I'm off to a PvE mega server. I'm sick of layering issue.
This was in response to the mega servers coming. So I don't know what he's talking about, the layering issue. I mean, he's still going to have to layer on PvE mega servers. Like, I wonder if he doesn't realize that you're still going to be layered on a mega server. But I don't know.
I wonder if he's talking about like the Horde and Alliance layers.
Maybe.
that develop on PvP servers.
It could be, but I mean, since
There's
the
other
only
issues with layering too. Like, remember how like the amount of times that I've complained about being mid combat with something and I got layered in the middle of combat, or
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'm
That's
about
the
to
worst.
skin something and I got layered off the layer where I killed the thing, so I can't skin it.
the worst for hardcore in caves, and I'm sure you know about that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
That was
those
happening
evade spots are
in-
more necessary than ever with that layering problem.
in Ashenvale, phase 1. You'd get layered out of your winning like Ashenvale battle into a losing one, and that was terrible.
that was horrible.
And then the layer issues that happened in the STV event at the beginning there. Like there were times where you would like be in a party with people and then like just like out of nowhere, half the party would get layered away from you. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I guess I have to leave. And then you would leave the group to go find one that was on the same layer as you. And as soon as you left the group, you got switched back to the layer that they were on. You could see him and you're like, what the hell? So then you get back in the group and then you get layered away again. It's like, what is happening?
Yeah, haven't had any layer issues these last couple phases, or at least this last phase, I think. Maybe they're worried about the new tech that hasn't been tested with the layering, could need some fixes.
Maybe. Sorry to interrupt the show here, but I need you louder, Kev. I've got you turned up as loud as I can get you.
Oh, I can get louder. Is that good?
Yeah, perfect. Thank
Okay.
you. Perfect. Okay.
I think those layering issues seem to be pretty much fixed. Like I haven't seen like the type of issues that we were having in like Ashenvale event phase 1 or STV event phase 2. And I mean, they was pretty much fixed before the end of those phases. It got probably slower than some people would have wanted, but I mean, they got fixed. So those issues got fixed, but still like randomly getting layer swapped in the open world out of nowhere, sometimes in the middle of combat. Like I understand that they need to layer swap people every once in a while just to make things even or whatever, but like there's got to be a way to ignore people who are currently actively fighting something. Like come on.
Imagine if you were
Right?
a hunter, doing a 20-minute kill of an elite you had to kite back and forth, and then you get layered off, like that part, that's horrible. Yeah, I don't see why it'll layer you in combat. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I haven't had layering issues in a long time, but at the same time, I'm not in areas usually that are packed full, except for Blackrock Mountain, which I haven't experienced any layer problems there either. But Ashenvale was just so full of people, it probably was very hard for them to properly do it. But I haven't really had layer issues since Ashenvale, since like phase 2.
And
Yeah, I
then
haven't
the
had a
other
ton.
thing was 40-man rating.
Yeah, but his actual thing was 40-man rating. 40-man rating is coming to BWL. I mean, you can take 40
It's an
people in there.
option.
Yeah. I don't know how. I really kind of hope that it doesn't screw up logs or something, because I'd love to
It will.
just have 25 people, and if 3 people don't show up, we're still fine. But if everybody shows up, we're still fine. I
It
hate.
depends on how they scale things, because like there's like the flex system from retail where it'll automatically adjust things about the fight based on how many people you have in the group. But
It's
there
not
are
going
like
to do that. They've said
there's, like-
specifically.
yeah, so like that's a thing for people to like be aware of. Is that like it's not the same, because you could read that and then make all kinds of assumptions about how it's going to be. But it's definitely important to remember what sort of things the framework of classic is able to do and what it can't do. And I don't know if they can even do the flex thing. So to assume that it would be a flex thing would be kind of silly, I think. But I've seen a couple people talking about the flex thing.
I know a lot of people like to parse, but I would just love to be able to not stress out about leaving somebody out or having alternates or anything, like just being able to take whoever and just always making sure we're over 20, like that would be so nice. But I know a lot of people enjoy seeing their parse and seeing that. And I just don't know how logs are going to handle that.
Kind of the way that I see it, I think that Blizzard should make the decision that they think is right for the game, and that Warcraft logs should figure it out from there. Like the devs shouldn't make changes on the game based on how it'll affect the way things are logged. Like they're a third, like Warcraft logs is a third party website. Like the onus is on them to figure it out based on what they're working with. So I don't think Blizzard shouldn't even be a consideration from Blizzard about what to do with the raid size thing. Like that's up to Warcraft logs to figure out.
Yeah.
Or the player to decide if they prefer to parse or prefer to play with more of their friends.
Problem is I think the majority of players would prefer to parse.
I think so too, Bob.
And I think that the raid leader would prefer to just take more people. But we'll see here. But yeah, I think 40-man raids to be required to have them, man, I don't know. I don't think that I want that. Yeah.
I think most people don't want that.
So
I kind of miss 40s in a sense, but it's mostly because of like extra flexibility with like group comps and stuff. Like already in a 20-man, you know, one of the groups kind of has to be the healer group and another group kind of has to be the tank group. So you're left with 2 DPS groups essentially, or like, you know, 2 full DPS groups and 2 sort of like mixed groups. And like, it's easier to pump if you have all DPS in the same group, like helping each other do more damage. You know what I mean?
It's really mostly for melee though. You can get all the buffs as for casters much easier, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of what when I think of like larger raid sizes, the main thing that I think of is that it's just easier to have like full pump groups because you're like the proportion of the raid that has to be a tank group or a healer group is smaller in a larger raid size.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I don't know. I mean,
either way, I'm gonna play it. Like it's not gonna keep me from playing BWL, you know what I mean? Like I'm still gonna play it. Right. Like just different implications for how it's gonna go. That's all.
Yeah. I'll talk about it when we get to the BWL talk in the news, because yeah, there were significant differences between taking in 25 and taking in 40. So, and some pros and some very bad cons to taking in 40. So I'll get into that when we talk into the news. But let's get on to the voicemails.
Hey, Mel, and I guess the other guy's name is Bob, and distinguished guest. Appreciate you taking the call. I've always wanted to ask this question. Vanilla through Wrath, I was all in on WoW, played 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I've not played a lot since then. I've played sporadically on private servers, a month here, a month there, over the last 15 years or so, but can't catch that nostalgic. Love listening to the podcasts, Warcraft Reloaded, Countdown, Mere Casuals. I've not played the game in 5 to 6 years. I can't understand why I can't catch back on to get in there. I love listening to all these podcasts. I love listening to the game on how it operates now, but I just can't get back in. I'm a single guy, though. No priorities, no kids, no wives, no nothing. But I cannot find how I can get back into the game. Let me know your thoughts. Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, let me play his little last follow-up.
I apologize for the second call. My name is Grar. I did not leave that on the previous message. But like I said, I listened to your podcast. I jump in on Twitch and whatnot. But my name is Grar. I apologize. Thank you.
All right. So how can he get back into it? I mean, if he's got time, he can get back into it.
I don't know what's stopping him.
Yeah. Sounds like he just maybe doesn't have the time or the motivation to play. Like he's interested, but once he gets in, it doesn't like match what his interest is when he's not playing. You know what I mean?
I think it's more, feels like he's like possibly anxiety, like the opposite of FOMO, fear of not I don't know, fear of not being able to make it. I don't know. It sounds like he's listened to all of the podcasts and stuff, and he just thinks that he can't do it. But
Or that, or finding a group of people to play with, right? Like, I think, your desire to come back and then coming back and not having like a group of people that you enjoy playing with, I think the joy fades pretty quickly, right?
The motivation, you could luck into a group that you like, or you could luck into a group that just uses the N word constantly, and then you have to get out of that, and so.
I mean, it could just be something as simple as like, you ever picked up a game that you played 10 years ago and you're trying to get back into that game and you're like, dude, I don't even know where I was. I don't even know what these buttons do anymore. It could just be something as simple as that. Like, it's been a while since you played, and it's like you can't just always hop right back in, because you got to like relearn stuff, and like the amount of time that it takes to relearn stuff, like it's almost like a chore to like get back into something when you've been away from it for long enough. You got to like rebuild the muscle memory and relearn the way certain things interact with each other and stuff. And then layer on top of that, like if he's talking about SOD specifically, like there's a bunch of new stuff that got added to SOD. So some of the stuff that he might remember might be different. So it's like, it could just be something like that. Like after enough time away from something, it gets increasingly hard to get back into it, just because of forgetting things and not knowing certain things about the way stuff interacts with like any new meta that may have arisen, like that sort of thing. Could just be that.
I understand that. Like, I feel that way about, games other than WoW that have DLCs that come out like a year later. I often don't play them because I don't even remember like all the combat mechanics, where I was in the story. So I'm like, they should have just gave me the full game. So now I'm not going to play the rest. But with WoW, you just, start at level 1. SOD is a little different. There's those rune quests that might be hard to find people to help you with, but I think as long as you start at level 1 and don't go into like retail and boost something to 70 and start from there, you'll be okay.
I think so too. I think you should just jump in. I mean, catching up isn't super hard, because there is people just running alts and doing all kinds of stuff. Groups are going constantly for all the different stuff at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. I think that, there's pugs for Molten Core going constantly. I mean, you can find a spot. Like, the problem is you have to put yourself out there before you find a group that you want to play with. And without putting yourself out there, I mean, Kef tried to get into our groups a bunch in phase 1, but just we couldn't get rogues in. And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to make sure this happens, and I'm going to concrete my spot by saying, hey, I will tank for phase 2. And then at that point, it didn't matter. Like, he was part of the crew after weeks of going with us. And if he wanted to go back to DPS, he was still going to be part of the crew. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you might have to make a sacrifice too, doing something you might not want to do as much or at all, even just to like get yourself a spot. And that's, I don't know, that's kind of what you got to do. But I think you could get into something. I mean, people are recruiting for guilds constantly right now. I mean, even Swamp's still recruiting. We just keep growing in raid numbers, so. And with mega servers,
40-man thing, like if 40-man becomes sort of like the new meta again, then like that would be unfortunate for like the smaller guilds that can barely do a 20-man roster. But for the bigger guilds, and this is where the mega servers thing comes into play too, mega servers should make it easier to build 40-man rosters, and a bigger guild like that, it's easier to find more people to play with on those big servers. So I guess like for our friend here who called in, who's like worried about how to get back into it and stuff like that, this is something that like I'm sure has already been talked about, but when these new mega servers come out, it'll be free transfers onto those new mega servers from all the existing servers. So there's no, you don't necessarily have to wait until the mega servers come out to jump back into things. You can roll on whatever server you want to play on, and then when those mega servers come out, you can switch to one of those for free, and that should be easy to find people to play with.
Yep. I think just jump in, man. You just gotta jump in and see how the water feels. It might be real cold to start off with, but It'll get better, I promise you. That was a good metaphor. It just came to me.
Take the plunge.
All right, let's head on to the next one.
Hey, Warcraft Reloaded. This is Valeth. I just wanted to see if you guys had considered the leveling experience in like a Classic Plus context. I know we have a big XP bonus for seasonal servers, which I think makes perfect sense for a seasonal server. But for Classic, I was thinking that maybe the rest system should be increased. It's currently about 1 bar, one bubble, if you will, per 8 hours. You're logged out in an inn, which is about 5% of a level, which obviously means it's a very long time to get a level's worth of experience. Which, if the idea is that someone leveling casually or someone leveling an alt casually is supposed to be able to log in from time to time and play that character, then the rate at which it accrues is just so slow that it would take like months to level a character this way. So I would think like just you could increase that by a factor of like 3 to 5 and not really make a meaning. Like I don't think it would really change the speed of how most people level that much, but it would mean that they can log in from time to time and make meaningful progress. And it would still be kind of a game mechanic way that I think would feel more natural than just a flat XP bonus that affects everything, including quests. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that out, see if you guys had any ideas on how to make the classic leveling experience a little smoother without destroying what makes it feel so good.
Yeah, so I think now people can correct me in the comments or whatever if I'm wrong, but I believe rest accrues at 2 bars over 24 hours. So a bar like every 12 hours. Could be a little off on that. Could be wrong.
No idea.
And I believe it caps out at 11.5. So I believe it caps out at, what would that be, 30 bars?
I don't know. Did I miss? I don't know if I missed something at the beginning of the voicemail. Did he say anything about like a potential like Classic Plus sort of situation, or is he talking about just like Classic Era?
He's talking about Classic Plus, and maybe the rest system should be revamped to give rest faster so that people feel more meaningful if they can play every couple days instead of people that are able to play 24 hours, 7 days straight and level their tune. They'd be able to log in every 3 days and keep up with them type of deal.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see the appeal to something like that. I feel like it would be interesting if they had like some sort of like consumable that
Like
could
fodder?
get you rested. Yeah, like similar to the fodder system, like something like that. I think fodder is a pretty good example because like they've already sort of shown that they can do it. Like they have the ability to do that. So I think something like that would be interesting. I don't know how they would add more. Like I don't know, maybe it would be a profession item. Like maybe it could be something that you get from from cooking or whatever. You know what I mean? Like give people a reason to level cooking. Make it like a soulbound thing. You make yourself a fodder and gives you more rested, or like increases the rate at which you accrue rested XP if you use one and gives you a buff and you log out with the buff. If you log back in with that buff still on you, then like it increases the amount of rested that you have accrued, or even increases the multiplier, something like that.
I worry about making it too convoluted and too, but like that would still reward, a system like that would still reward the sweaties. I think he's talking a way to keep the sweaties more in line with the people that, have 19 kids and 4 wives and, live in a compound. I don't know. I think that's what he's trying.
I don't know how necessary it would be to like I don't even know if it'd be possible to create a system that would only benefit people that don't get to play as often. Like I don't know how you would even do that.
Well, it would only
he's saying that the system doesn't benefit people that play more. Right?
I didn't catch that. I think
he's saying like if you play more, you don't get as much rest. Did I understand that wrong? Like, I think he's saying, like, if somebody's leveling an ult and gets on every once in a while, they have a ton of rest to play through. But if you're leveling a character and that's your primary character, you're not getting as much rested while you're leveling. So the leveling process is slower in time played.
I think it would benefit people if it's faster. It would give more benefit to people that are logged out for longer, but it would help sweaties in the sense of alts, because they would just, after they worked up their main, they wouldn't get any benefit from the system, but then they would benefit on all their alts because they would work up all the rest on one alt, switch to the other alt, and they just have them all working up at the same time, probably.
That's what it currently is. I guess I'm confused. Did I miss something?
Yeah, but it accrues so slowly. It's not like that. For people that don't play an alt for a week, it's that.
Yeah.
So
I think maybe like a good middle ground. Maybe this is what he was more getting at too, just for the rested to accrue faster and for more.
Mm-hmm.
Like more, like maybe not even. You probably would still need to put a cap on the amount of like extra XP you could accrue from it. Like you can't do unlimited, because then you'd have people like just creating a character, logging in, then logging off and waiting.
Oh yeah, I think the cap should still be there. Yeah, like maybe make it a 2-level cap instead of a 1.5 levels. I could still be wrong on these numbers I'm throwing out. I'd love to know. I'm sure there's some information out there. We could probably Google it, but it'd be better if you left a comment and told us.
It does go up to a 1.5 levels, because I know whenever it's full, it says I have 150% rested experience.
Okay. I don't have the percentage turned on, so that
like no matter what you do, like any system that you put in to help out people that don't get to play as often, like there will be people that get a chance to play way more often that will just use that to level more alts, and I don't think that there's really anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it.
So if rested accrued more quickly, or even if there was like an extra multiplier or something like that, like instead of double XP, if it was like 2.5 or 3 times XP or something like that, then that would help players who don't get a chance to play as often stay relatively caught up. And then if people want to like use that increased system to level their alts faster, then more power to them. You know what I mean? Like they still got to go and do it.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know, man, something about rest just feels so good. It feels so good to have rest. I don't know why. Also, what if if on top of that change, you made quests work with rest also? Because you'd be really incentivized to just grind mobs at that point if, rest accumulates that quick. So that's another unintended response that could possibly happen to a change like that as well.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I'm already thinking of ways to be like, all right, I'm going to have a full quest log, and then I'm going to log out, and I'm going to wait, and then I'm going to go turn them all in for double quest XP. I'm going to get 5 levels in 12 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so Ubiquitous is saying if you log out for 10 full days, it's 1.5 levels. So that would mean my math would be off. So that would mean for a full 24 hours, you're getting 2.5 bars. Am I doing the math right there? 2.5 bars a day. If it fills in 10 days and it's 30 bars, it's 2.5 bars a day. Am I doing that right?
3 bars a day, 3 times
3
10,
bars
right?
a day, 3 bars a day. Yep. Okay. That's why I asked. So maybe it is 3 bars a day. It does not feel like 3 bars a day, but maybe I just log into my characters too often.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't see a problem with giving rest faster. I don't see a problem with that at all. Especially if we go back to the actual classic leveling. Man, that shit takes a long time, guys. It takes a long time.
It sure does.
Yeah, with like 50 to 60 actually takes a good amount of time inside. I was really, because we leveled so fast from 40 to 50 with incursions, I was really kind of like kind of struck by how long it took to go from 50 to 60. I was like, damn, okay. Like, I totally underestimated how much time it would take. So if we go back to the like classic vanilla leveling speed, woo, doggies. Anything else before we move on to the next voicemail?
I think there's a big difference too in like the way, like how fast Blizzard wants us to be able to level depends pretty heavily on like what sort of gameplay experience they want us to have. You know what I mean? Like part of original vanilla was the journey to 60. You know what I mean? Like that was part of the whole thing. And now more recently, of course, there's a lot more of an emphasis on end game, like doing raid content and stuff like that. So if there's stuff to do along the way, then I don't see how it would necessarily be a bad thing for it to take a little bit longer to level. But if all of like the big content is the stuff at max level, then like I would also understand why they would want us to get to max level faster. So it all really depends on what they would want to do in a Classic Plus, like how fast they want us to be able to level and like what they have in store for us along the way.
More quests and more meaningful quests with, like epic quests, I think would be really cool, between the 40 and 60 range for both sides. I mean, Horde has it a little bit better, but like in those ranges, 40 to 60, whereas Alliance, I think, has at least a little bit cooler in the early stages. But Horde's leveling experience is a lot easier at the start too. It's just, I don't think it's as cool, but you're in the Barrens and there's just a ton of stuff to do and it's all real close and everything's fairly easy. So not like easy in the sense of you're not traveling very far and you got the cool buffs you got there in the Barrens at Camp T, and there's just a lot. But I think more quests in those later ranges would be really cool, and being able to get something that might be pre-bis, for just out in the world quests from 50 to 60 would be pretty freaking cool.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the next one, and I'm going to let you guys answer it first because I'm going to go fill my drink.
Hey, Warcraft Reloaded. This is Valith again. Just on the same note, I was wondering if you also think that maybe leveling should be made to feel a little better to do in groups. I know some people leveled in like duos or trios in hardcore, which was probably pretty fun. But I think those people would probably be able, better than anyone, to tell you that there's a lot of quests that are really annoying because quest drops are not just like really rare sometimes. So it's like, oh, I need 10 of these things, but I have to kill 5 mobs for each one. But then not everyone in the group can loot them. So you're sort of like, the way the quest is designed makes you not want to be in a group to do them. And I think a lot of quests, like things like that, should basically just have high drop rates and scale across the group so that you don't feel punished for playing in a group. Because even if it kind of makes some things really easy or trivial, I think leveling in a goon squad can be an absolute blast. And I think encouraging people to spend more time questing in groups, even when it's not strictly a group quest, would probably feel better for a lot of people. And anything that makes that not feel like you're being punished, I think would be better for the game. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, I love the podcast.
We've done a lot of that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got a point.
Bob, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, we've done a ton. I was going to let you guys go first, but I guess I'm back.
I could still go first.
Go on.
I think I do like leveling as a group, and we tend to usually avoid those quests that have, the mob might drop one and one of 5 of us can pick it up. I like to also have the option to not have to depend on if my, buddies are online to level. So I want certain quests to go do on my own if I'm planning to level like other quests with people. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you I want to have options. I want to have quests that I can do as a group and be efficient and effective, but I also want to not have to rely on, like, that's what endgame and rating and everything like that is for, right? I think it just makes things faster and more fun when you level in a group, but it shouldn't be, that shouldn't be the meta, I don't think.
Like Battle of Hillsbrad quests, those are fun to do as a group, like Horde side. I don't know if there's an alliance equivalent to that or not, but like going over to get the elite dwarves up north at the end of that quest chain, you know, I like that kind of stuff where like you're not going to do this alone. If you're going to do it at the appropriate level, you need to find some people.
I think when it comes to like the drop quests, like I totally get what he means about how like it can be annoying to do those quests that have drop items in a group, specifically because that, like, instead of, you know, if it's a quest where you need to get 10 things from enemies and you have a 5 stack going through, you don't just need 10, you need 50. There are certain things where like it'll drop something for everybody, but not all of them are like that, and it's hard to know which is which unless you already have like prior knowledge of that,
Sure.
or if you like look it up or whatever. But like there's a couple other games that I played that did things slightly differently. Like if there was a quest that had like a drop item or whatever, it would just count all of the drops that the whole group got as like towards the quest. So if it was like you had to get 5 things, like if one person gets 1 item each, then like it still counts it as completed because the group has found 5 of that thing.
Yep.
So like think about it, like if you're like, you know, do a little RP exercise real quick. Like this is from my experience having, you know, been a dungeon master for D&D and stuff like that. Like if you give a quest to, you know, an adventurer or a group of adventurers, like I wouldn't, if I was a dungeon master giving a quest to my players, I wouldn't say it like, I would say, you need to bring me 5 of this thing. Oh, there's 5 of you. Actually, I need 25. Like, no, if you only need 5, you're only going to say, bring me 5. So
I agree with that too.
In like the WoW situation, like if it's a group quest like that, then just count all of the drops that the whole group has gotten towards completion of the quest. And then when, you know, whoever, you know, somebody turns in the quest, it turns in for everybody, like that sort of thing. I don't know how difficult that would be to implement, but like just from a conceptually, I feel like that would make a lot of sense.
So I have kind of like a long one for this, but I'll try to make it as concise as I can. So I had never in the history of WoW back in 2004 until SOD Phase 1, the end of Phase 1, I had never consistently grouped up with 5 people and quested. Duos,
Same.
sometimes trios, but most of the time just duos if I was going to do it. Because I do understand it does split your EXP per mob kill up. I understand that. But I think in the beginning, so I probably need to talk about Phase 1. Okay, so when Phase 1 was coming to an end, we got these pre-questing guides, thanks to Jordy and Only Black Smoke. And I tried to do them, duos, with Mel, and they were so much higher level that they were really hard to do. And I mean, they were basically elite quests because everything was 5 levels higher than us, you know? So it was really tough. So I was like, well, guys, we should do this pre-questing thing as a group. And so I started forming groups, and I formed multiple groups of 5, and it was new for a lot of us. Like, I remember No Hit Jerome was like, I don't know, man. And then afterwards he was like, that was great, you know? It was a blast, especially on a PvP server where you guys are actually getting to fight off stuff. Other people are, you know, you kill a group of 3 as 5 of you. They'd go find some friends and come back and get revenge. I mean, it was really cool. I had some of the most fun I'd ever had questing during that time. And then we did it again in Phase 2 and did a little bit in Phase 3 at the end, but not as much. We kind of were like, we'll see. And then we didn't do it at all, really, in, you know, leading into phase 4, when we should have probably done it leading into Phase 4. But either way, like, it was the coolest thing ever. And I kind of think back to why in the beginning did they ever punish you for questing in a 5-man group? And by punish you, I don't mean splitting the EXP, because I think that should be a thing. Because if you made it so that you got 100% XP, you know, in a group, you would have to be in a group. It would be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, it'd be like meta defining at that point.
But why did they ever do the thing? We have shared drops all through vanilla. Shared drops on these big items that'll drop, like only one of them drops, but they're shared drops, and everybody gets the item when it drops. Why on earth are the collection quests not like that? Why did they punish you for being in a group in an MMO? It's like almost like it doesn't make sense in that sense. I don't get why they didn't ever think. They already had shared drops, so it's obviously doable. Why weren't all those quests shared drops in the first place, incentivizing people to group up in a massive multiplayer online game?
I think they only included shared drops on things that they didn't think you could do solo, right? So I think they, and I don't know that I disagree with it. Do I hate drop quests? Yes. But we could go into different things, like why doesn't every mob drop an item that you need? Like, why do I have to kill 150 of them to get 25 things? You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of issues with the drop quests that span beyond just being in a group. But if you look at the ones that give you a shared drop, typically they're either a more rare drop or it's a quest that you're supposed to group up to do together with somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a dungeon boss drops the quest item or something like that, and everybody can get it.
Yeah, I just don't. It's still though. Why does that make sense? That, like, Table even said it himself. If you're giving somebody a quest to get 5 things, but there's 5 of you now, I need 25. Why? It doesn't make sense. And yeah, you could have to 25. Stay in the group to turn 5. It in, right?
Like, you don't need 25 though. That's the thing. You still just need 5. So,
yeah, but that quest giver's getting 25. It doesn't make a lot of sense. They're like, I just need 5 more of this thing to complete my project. Oh, there's another one. I need 5 more things to complete my project again. Like,
they're all con artists, Bob.
Yeah, it's just
I feel like I think a fair way to do it would be like I guess sort of like a compromise almost would be like if you're going to do what would normally be a solo quest as a group quest, you only need the 5 instead of needing an extra 5 for whoever's in the group, but also maybe the reward gets chopped a little bit. Like if you want to do it solo, you can do it solo and get the full money rewards. But if you're going to do it as you keep the XP the same, but the actual money reward, maybe cut that a little bit if you don't solo it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but I say screw that.
The way that
I say just share drops on every drop quest.
Well, that's the easiest solution, really.
I mean, it makes sense.
I'd love that. I'm just saying I can understand why they didn't do it initially, right? Like, I can understand why they didn't do it initially, but I don't know that you want to make it so bad that people feel like solo leveling is
the wrong decision.
I think it should be
not
the wrong
attainable.
Decision,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I mean, it'd still be. You wouldn't change anything except for the fact that when you group up, it's a shared drop. So then, anytime you're in an area, we're gonna do it. We're gonna be like, hey, you want a group for this? And then we might stay in a group because of it instead of dropping right after we get our stuff done. And then maybe after half an hour of grouping together, some, guy that's uncomfortable talking might be like, so how long you been playing for? Might start talking. Yeah. You might make a buddy. You might make friends.
That would be the biggest benefit, is not necessarily grouping up with your friends to go out and quest, but not avoiding grouping up with others because it's a drop quest, right? I think that does promote the social aspect that they're looking for. And I think by having quests that you're like, no, you're not going to be in my group because I want this drop, prevents that a little bit more.
Yeah, because I've told people many times when they wanted to group, sorry, bro, collection quest.
Mhm.
I just decline. I don't even say anything if
Yeah, I
they
don't
invite
either.
me during a collection quest.
I
You see it
know.
all the
Don't
time.
be
It is
crazy.
unfortunate. It's
They're just trying
unfortunate
to
that that's the way
distract
it
me
is.
from the
You're
next
just
chat.
trying to distract me.
Or like worse, yeah. I mean, this has happened to me before. You accept a group invite for like some other quests that are in the area, and like you finish quickly with them, and then every single kill, like the other person that you join the group with is the one that ends up getting the quest item, and you still have nothing, and then they leave, and
They
you're like,
leave
oh,
before you're done. I have experienced in hardcore, I'd say 90% of the time, people were like, I'm going to stay until you're done too. I mean, it was unbelievable for me how kind and generous people were in hardcore situations, whereas people wouldn't even say anything and just drop group and peace out, you know, in most situations. And hardcore people would be like, I'd even tell them, hey, bro, you don't have to stay. You got yours done. It's all good. They'd be like, nah, dude, I'm gonna stay till you're done. And like that was refreshing and cool. But I think we could just get rid of that altogether, and just I think the game would be better for it, and you'd have a lot more groups, have a lot less hate towards your own faction. It's like, get out of here. This is my area. I was here first, and you're just coming in, and you're faster than me because you can tag the mobs quicker than me, and fuck you. Like, you know what I mean? Where you
There's
could just
other
be like,
stuff,
hey,
too.
let's group up.
like if we're like, so the drop item quest thing is, yeah, I agree that like the easiest solution would just be to make all the drop items drop for everybody the same way that like echoes do, like that sort of thing, or other, you know, like epic or elite quests and whatever. I feel like that's definitely the like simplest solution. But also there are some quests out in the world where you have to like interact with an item on the ground, like loot something with the you know, like cogwheel, like your cursor turns in the cogwheel, you loot something like that. And there are quests like that where if one person does the thing, it despawns and you have to wait for it to respawn for the next person to get it. Think about like the rock
Hinterlands?
in what do you call it? The Black Rock event where you go down and you have to like loot the thing with the cogwheel to loot that, and then it despawns and then you have to wait for it to it respawns pretty fast, but still, like, why can't multiple people loot that at the same time? Like it's so silly.
I think those are kind of fine as long as they're few and far between. And collection ones where you're collecting stuff on the ground, you're getting one for sure every time. You know, like I don't know that we really need to like have shared nodes or shared, like that just feels, that sounds like retail. Like,
Do you remember the
mentality.
Hinterlands, Gentha lore? There were like those little cauldrons, and you know, we'd be there like an hour after we finished all the other 3 or 4 quests because we needed to find 50 of those fucking things.
Yeah, 'cause that's like a combination of the two things, like the worst of both worlds, where like you have to, it's a collection quest, but it's also an item in the world that you have to loot quest.
Oh, we've got a horrible take in chat. Jesus. Superhuman Jess. People need to stop saying that line. Just play retail. All these problems are solved. They're not solved. They're changed, but in our minds, they're not solved. It's not a solution that is good. It's just you're thinking that just because they came up with a solution that works for them, that it's an actual solution for everybody. It's not. Yeah, I don't like the node things. I mean, some of them could be increased spawn rates, yes, but I think sometimes it's okay to skip quests. It's just that in some of the areas, half of your quests are those drop quests. So why not have it be shared? Because suspension of disbelief is each person is picking up the item that the group needs, you know, and then like, you know, suspension of disbelief is that they're holding it to turn it in for the group, right? Whereas everybody's actually collecting it, but I don't know. I think that's cool. But I don't want it.
You only have to do the quest once, I guess. I don't level alts. I mean, I can live with it.
I mean, kind of like there's other ways you could look at it too, with like how it would make sense for only one person to do something. Like, for example, in Ubers, only one person needs a key to be able to do Ubers. You know, not everybody needs a key to do Ubers. But then for
I've
something
never
like
had an
Ani,
Uber's key ever.
like everybody has to be attuned to Ani.
Really?
Everybody has to be attuned to MC. But like if it's something like opening a door, only one person needing the key makes sense. So for a collection quest like that, like the Jinta Allure ones we're talking about, where you gotta loot the little cauldrons and stuff, like if it's already considered to be a group quest or an elite quest, I think it would make sense for one person to be like the designated collector person, or to only,
Which we've done for some quests, remember? Like some quests, you'll have to get a prereq item, right? You have to get 5 of them, but then only one person has to use it. We've done that before, and like we'll be like, all right, Mel got the first one. We're just gonna have Mel loot them all. I can't think of specifics, but
I know what you mean.
we've done that before.
Activate a torch,
like
just
Ultimate.
Yeah.
Like,
kill 'em.
think about like Ultimate with like the pieces of the staff. You know what I mean? Like something like that. Not everybody needs both pieces of the staff. Only one person needs both pieces of the staff, and then you can summon the extra boss. So like I don't know. There's so many examples of stuff that we could probably think of that are, who knows, maybe they were just oversights from Blizzard back in the day when they were first designing this stuff. That could have just been it. But I feel like if they want to do a modern take on vanilla, aka Classic Plus, then some of this stuff, it definitely would make sense for them to address or to change slightly to be less like Agron keeps talking about friction and stuff like that. You know, sure, the old design philosophy has a lot of friction in it, stuff like that, but like that doesn't mean that if you want to do like a modern take on something, I would think you would want to, like, there's a difference between something being, you know, friction to be kind of like reminiscent of the way that things used to be versus just being frustrating and annoying.
Yeah, like we were looking for a happy medium in between retail, which has no friction, you know, unless you're high-end rating. But as far as in the open world questing and everything's shared, everything, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're looking for something in between, you know. That's how I kind of feel about it.
I guess the
agree.
workaround now is layering. Like, oh, I looted all these things off layer 1. Anyone on layer 2? So I can loot these things. I'm leaving group, guys.
Yeah, those things could be definitely improved on. I do like friction, but I don't like dumb. And it's just like for the collection quests just seem dumb to me. And that's the one thing that has seemed dumb to me for a long time is the drop rates are low and you're collecting this thing and you have to wait for someone else to get done with it. Like it's just ugh.
That's kind of like what I was saying. I just to look at it from like the RP angle, and that's just how I'm looking at it, is from the RP angle. Like if you're giving out a quest to a group of adventurers, like the thing that you're asking them shouldn't change just because there's more of them, and also the reward that you give them shouldn't be more just because there's more of them. It's like, all right, if you want to take 5 of you to do this quest that is doable with 2 people, that's fine, but you're splitting the reward 5 ways instead of 2 ways. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier.
I would like
What about loot rewards? You just roll them.
Oh, interesting.
Like Thrash Blade or something. I guess that's a dungeon quest, a little bit different.
But
But
more like the money. Like if it's a
The
money
money.
reward, you're like, you know, if well, bring me this, I'll give you a gold. It's like, okay, well, if there's 5 of you, then you each get 20 silver instead of each getting a gold.
And maybe
That sort of thing.
And maybe you do make
That
it
makes sense.
so it's, you know, the group has to stay together until you turn in, you know, and that is friction. People would be like, I got wife aggro. All right, I'm putting you on follow real quick. I'll come back and turn it in just a second. I mean, I guess you
Classic
could do
WoW.
that. I mean, you know, like that would, but I was just thinking it'd be a lot easier to make the change for a shared drop. But yeah, I think staying in the group and like having one person hold the items, I think would be great for groups of friends. I think there'd be a lot of people, if you had to split rewards and stuff, there'd be a lot of people that would abuse it. And if they grouped with a rando, as soon as it was over, they collected everything, they dropped their ass. And turn in the quest.
That's why I was saying do the thing where like, you know, you don't have to have necessarily one person hold all the items, but if each person in the group has like a couple of the items in their bag, then it just counts everything that the whole group has acquired as part. That way, like even if you start on the quest, say you've got 2 of the items already, and then you join a group that's already in progress, and they would have only needed 2 to go, then you'd be like, hey, I have those 2. We could just go turn it in right now.
Okay. I could be on board for that. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Well, let's move into what's everybody been doing this week? Anybody do anything cool? I mean, Table did something cool a week and a half ago.
I did.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, it was just a legendary. I mean, it wasn't that cool, but it was
hand of rag, of course. There was like I was like, I soloed the dragons more than.
What did I do?
Yeah, I got my hand of rag. That's cool. Well, we got our hand of rag. I'll say it like that.
Yep.
Our second hand of rag.
Yep, it takes a village, right? Yeah, you were blown away by the generosity, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, big time. Like it dropped, and I was like, not ready for it to drop because like I didn't have any of the stuff. I didn't farmed anything or whatever, and like probably 6 or 7, maybe even 8 people from the raid like bombarded me with donations so I could get it, and I made it that night. Like it was something I thought I was gonna be like, okay, for the next like week and a half I'll be grinding stuff to get this mace made, but instead it got done that night because everybody chipped in a little bit to get it done, which was like super cool. And I mean, now the raid has its second hand of rag.
Yep, which is like what it blows me away, the crew that we've built up, how kind and generous they are. I mean, Mel had something really cool happen to her the other day. It was a very thoughtful thing to do. By thoughtful, right?
Yeah, thoughtful. We were grinding the Crusader enchant recipe. First of all, it was so horrible because we get there and there's this other rogue there grinding it. And this other rogue literally just keeps beating Bob and Crispix every tag.
Every time.
And so they're like problem solving, like how do we get, better to get tags? And then they did, and they like changed a few things, and then they were getting all of the tags.
Yeah, I could say what I did. I noticed he was warping to him. At first, I thought he was using Shadow Step macros. And I tried Shadow Step macros. But I was still missing the tags. And I'm like, dude, I have 17 MS. How is this Chinese farmer that's got to be at least 200 ping beating me every time? And I realized and thought back, wait a second. He's using that move I haven't used since fucking phase 1. He's using, I forget even the name of it.
Shadow Strike. Shadow
Strike, yeah. I was like, okay, I'm going to change that out and spam that. And even though Shadow Step's off the global now, it still takes a half a second longer than your instant damage on Shadow Strike, because I believe Shadow Strike puts the damage before you even warp to him. So I switched it out, and then I'm beating him on every tag. And Jason switched it out, or Chris Mix switched it out. He's beating him on like almost every tag. But I'm still having to deal with I'm doing the guys on top. Mel and Buck are doing the guys on the bottom. And the only time he's getting one off on me is when I have to kill Marshall Dugan or whatever his name is. And it was just frustrating having to like spam the button constantly. And like it was rough. So I was having a hard ass time. All right, Mel, go ahead. But we did start to beat him at his own game.
So but he wasn't giving up. And like then we'd think he gave up, and then he'd come and grab one, and we'd be like, God damn it.
We did it for a couple hours.
I think he took a few minute break, I think, at one point, because they both switched their spec back, and then he came back and they were like, damn it. And so they had to switch everything back again. So we're sitting there for hours just and nothing. And Jason's like, how what's the drop rate on this? And I was like, it's like 0.2%, I think, is what it's showing on Wowhead. And we were all like, and it was like, how much is it on the auction house? And he's like, if it's 200, 300 gold, I'm just going to buy it for you. And then it was like 900, 1,000 gold.
I
On the
logged
auction
in
house.
and it was 950 gold
We were like,
on the auction
yeah,
house.
all right. So we kept pushing it, and then Thoughtful shows up and trades me the recipe.
Yeah, just bought it for.
Truly insane.
Just bought it.
Yeah,
So thank you,
such
Thoughtful.
a kind dude.
You could say that was thoughtful of him.
Thoughtful of thoughtful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
have that. I
he
did work
makes
up on
a ton of
enchanting all the
gold,
way,
too.
guys.
Yeah, he's been boosting people. He's been soloing dungeons, and I mean he's just been making gold hand over fist. But usually people, are doing that for a reason. But he's just doing it like obviously it seems just to help people out, and it's so cool that we have someone so nice. He didn't have to do that. I mean, he's got his hand of rag. The whole reason for us to have Crusader in the raid is so that if a weapon drops, it can be enchanted right there and be used for the rest of the raid. It's a small thing, and he's not going to need it for a long time, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just did it just to help all of us out, and it's really refreshing to see how kind and generous our raid really is.
That's awesome.
Agreed.
What have you been doing, Kev? You've been doing some solo stuff.
Oh yeah, I watched Simon's video and went to see if I could solo imp because I never got my Hand of Justice, and I went and did it. Didn't die once, and then got Hand of Justice. Iron Foe didn't drop. But Hand of Justice is good enough, so I probably will never be back.
Well,
one time and done.
Weapons are getting easier in the raid. I'm not soft reserving weapons anymore, and I think only one person still needs both of our warriors have ED, Empyrean Demolisher. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of them might really want Escandra's Claw, but they're nerfing it next phase. So, but
I don't know if I would consider that more of a fix than a nerf. Like if it was working the way it was supposed to, and they decided it was too strong, then I would consider that a nerf. But like it's bugged, like that, and there's some other items that are bugged too that are like too high of a proc chance.
Just the fact that if they didn't add any more haste items in. I mean, it was going to be BIS for a long, long time. So I think, it's crazy because I was looking at Viscag and Brute Blade dropped. And I'm looking at Simon's chart, and Viscag's like 15 weapons below Brute Blade for main hand. And I'm sitting there trying to figure it out why. And I was like, well, it does have a lot more stats, but I mean, this proc has got to be sick. And then I go look at my logs, and the proc happens like once every 5 minutes. Like, so I had one proc on almost every fight. And I was just like, okay, well, the proc sucks. Like, if it's, going to proc once in a fight, then no, it's not worth it at all. Like, but it looks so good. But without knowing the proc rate and the internal cooldown, it's just like, oh, okay, this sucks. But Escandra's procking constantly, and if it procs once a fight, that's going to be a very minimal type of deal. So, yeah, I think proc rates should probably just be a little bit more out in the open. Of
transparent.
Yeah, transparent. Like 2%. On melee hit, 45-second internal cooldown, but maybe I'm asking for too much.
I never knew it was that bad.
Yeah, I didn't either until I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not worth it at all. But oh well.
There definitely is a balance to be struck. Like a proc like that, they had to have known when they first made it back in the day that was going to be a really strong proc, and it's balanced out by having a low proc chance. But that's just the difference. Is like right now in SOD, it's bugged for whatever reason. I don't know what caused it to be bugged to have a higher than intended proc chance, but that's the situation that we're in. Is it's got a higher than intended proc chance, so it's a more impactful item than it should be because it's bugged. So they're just fixing the bug.
And I almost wonder if it wasn't bugged, if that was the proc rate in vanilla. Because if you remember, they changed it. It was like a 1.6 speed main hand, like almost worthless in vanilla. And so who would have even cared to ever check the proc rate? I mean, you got it as a joke whenever you got it in vanilla. But they changed it to where it's like a 2.6 speed now and has a much higher, like high-end damage. So now people do want it. So it's just like, I don't know how much that proc rate mattered when it was like 1.6 speed main hand.
I thought it might be good for a rogue tank just because of a unfair advantage when you're striking back, but I don't know if that damage is actually normalized or not.
I don't know if it is. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I've been just, what have I been doing? Did my PvP grind the last week. Got all the way up to like rank 9, 70%. And I need 140 some thousand to get to the next one. And I'm just like, okay, do I just wait for another Alterac Valley weekend and just wait? Like, just the next Alterac Valley weekend probably is going to hit right around the time BWL comes out, which means the cap will be raised. So do I just wait and do the grind again then? Because you do AV and you're like, okay, well, I'm getting half the bonus honor that I was getting. And people are less likely to just go and kill the end boss, and they're more likely to turtle. Is this really worth it? Do I want to put myself through this? Why is there no Arathi Basins? These are the things that I go through.
Yeah, it sucks only really being able to play AV. Right now, it's why I haven't PvP'd at all.
Yeah, I love AB. I'll do it for no reward. I did it the last half of phase 3. I mean, I was getting rep, but I mean, not much. But like, I was doing it. I needed no honor. I was honor capped to as high as I could go. But I guess most people aren't like me. Although now that people are getting their AV rep maxed out, I mean, maybe it'll change, but I really think they need to incentivize the other BGs over Alterac Valley a lot more, and at least on the bonus weekend, make them triple bonus instead of double bonus. Like,
yeah, you know something's wrong when it's like Warsong weekend and people are still only doing AP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think besides that, PTR, but we are planning on going to Heat 3 this week in our raid. We had another killer Heat 2 run, just blasted through. Unfortunately, Kef didn't make it. He had his power go out, so we didn't have our main tank. But it was a good growing and team building exercise for our raid to see that we could persevere and we could do okay. And good old Gribble Jones stepped up. He's our normal third tank. Whenever we need 3 tanks, he stepped up, he main tanked, and Table took over the job of third tank as a feral. And it would still be, we still did good. I mean, it wasn't as clean as we, normally do it. So Kef was definitely felt and missed, but
that's what I want to hear.
It helped everybody feel a lot more comfortable that we were able to pivot and we were able to change things up and still, do good and not have problems. And it worked out great. So
I hear a bunch of loot I rezzed drop too.
Yep. I got the Brute Blade. which wasn't.
Oh yeah, and you got the rain too.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the Band of Acuria. I think you probably had both of those rezzed, but
Sure
only
did, but-
me and Hammer had it rezzed, and I won it. And then on the Brute Blade, nobody had it rezzed. 3 people rolled, and I got it. So
I think that was the second one we've seen, if I'm not mistaken. Like either Gribble or Helbjorn has one, I think.
yeah, it is the second one we've seen. I don't remember if they got it. I think it might have been not Mooj who got it. I don't know. Might have been someone.
I wasn't there that time. He was there. That's when I was out of town.
Yeah, I think that's when it dropped the first time.
Okay.
But I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be off. But yeah, that's all I've done. And yeah, we're getting ready for Heat 3, so that should be. We're hoping that works out. We did. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of changes in our roster. One of our Shadow Priests has got some real life stuff. He has to step away for a few weeks, and then we lost our Resto Shabby. We got one trialing here this next week, but it's a little scary losing the extra Shadow Priest because 2 of them really did as much healing as one healer, and so. And on some fights out healed, 1 or 2 of the healers, that was what was all allowing us to easily 3 heal. We're going back to 4 healing, 1 Shadow Priest this week. So
they
we'll
were
see.
Only out healing us when I was dispelling, and they were not. Well, just clear the air here. Let's not act like they were,
well, that's
going nuts.
That's another thing that's scary is now we're down to 2 magic dispels. This is something Alliance doesn't have to deal with. Is it?
Because I think
More
you could look at the
restopods.
logs and it's not that scary if one of them's not there. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, either way, it's still less dispels. So. And less pliability. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but yeah, it's a little scary. We'll report back to you on how it went next week. But with all that being said, let's move into time for the news. All right, not a ton of news, but I forgot to put this in last week. I wanted to let people know that Fireland Embers and Emerald Chips now stack much higher and will be used for things next phase. We don't really know what, but a lot of people, including myself, were a little perturbed by this because I held on to my chips for a long time. And yeah, it's now I find out that I should have saved them. I deleted 150 of them or so, and you can't item restore them. And yeah, I would have rather them say the Emerald Chips are the Fireland Embers are going to be used next phase, but the chips thing was kind of a slap in the face for a lot of us. Did you guys end up deleting yours, or did you still have them in the bank?
I never had any chips because I never did Fairless or Henderland's incursions. So I didn't even have any chips.
Oh, okay.
But I kept all my embers.
I don't think I had any chips either.
I think you did.
But if I did, they're probably still in my bank.
Your bank has got to be scary looking.
It is.
Have you bought all your slots?
No, I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm still waiting on buying that last 100 gold slot.
Oh, yeah, I definitely haven't done that.
Ugh. That's something I could deal with them taking out.
Kind of makes me wish. Wasn't there earlier, or maybe it was a Sama thing, I don't know, where they made the bank slots cheaper to buy or whatever?
I'd be down with that.
It was either in an earlier phase or it was a Sama thing, I can't remember which, where they made the bank slots cheaper. If it was earlier in SOD that they were cheaper, then it makes me kind of kick myself that I didn't get more of them when it was cheap.
I don't remember it being cheaper. I remember just being like, all right, I'll buy this. I
Maybe
have
it's
to
a
buy
Steam thing
this.
then. Or maybe I'm just wrong.
I think
That's a
it was
distinct
changed to
possibility.
TBC or Wrath. That was changed.
Yeah, maybe I'm just mixed because there's 80 versions of the game out now. I'm probably just mixing it up.
Yeah, it's super easy to mix shit up now, which is a little bit rough. But yeah, just let you guys know, save those. I assume saving them, they made them stack a lot higher. Like a lot higher. Like here, like what they actually make them stack to?
I think chips already stacked pretty high, didn't they? It was just embers that were low in comparison.
I think chips did stack pretty high, but they were moved up to stack up to 2,500. So my guess is we're going to get a lot of them for different things in the next phase. So maybe, yeah, previous embers could stack to 99 and ember chips stacked up to 900 and 99. So they upped the chips by 2.5 times and basically upped the embers by 25 times. So that makes me think that a lot of these are going to drop. So it might not be that big of a deal that I lost 850. That might be one dungeon worth of something. And I assume they're going to drop in the new dungeons that are coming out. That would be my guess.
Either that or they'll somehow incentivize doing incursions even if you're done leveling.
Yeah, like dailies.
Yeah. Like I have not looked at incursions at all.
You can't do incursions after level 55. You can't pick up anything except for the drop quests. Not drop quests, the mining, skinning, and herbalism quests. So I would assume that these are going to be something for the new dungeons, but
could be.
If they stack that high, I feel like maybe us worrying about deleting some isn't that big of a deal.
I guess it depends on how much emphasis they're going to put on the nightmare stuff going forward. Because we've had some tinge of nightmare in pretty much everything so far. The thing that I worry about is if they make it come from the new dungeons, will the new dungeons also be giving us reals as well as chips? Because then that's you kill a boss and you get 2 things that take up bag space, and you have to make sure that you got them both. There's people that forget to loot their real because the item's busy, so it didn't go in your bag right away, that sort of thing.
Well, they need to
Maybe
download
trade
Nova.
a real for a chip.
That'd be interesting.
A few chips. Well, just for anybody who forgets to loot their reals, just you need to get Nova Instance Tracker, and it'll give you a nice little bouncing reminder to loot it. So saves me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna buy it real fast.
Oh, I
didn't want to go at the same time that Kev was gone.
I thought you were saying I'll be right back. I'm going to buy it real fast. I was like,
that's what I thought you said too.
I'm going to go purchase the thing we were talking about.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, it's a free add-on. You don't have to buy it, but you can download it. All right, so the next order of business, and then the last thing we got to talk about in the news is Blackwing Lair and Zul'Gurub testing started August 30th. And I did some testing. Did anybody else get in there?
I read up a little, but I didn't do any. What was your experience like?
Well, I was going to AFK for a second and let you guys talk, but now I can't do that, huh? So, okay, yeah. So I did testing. Unfortunately, I didn't get to test out the entire BWL. I had to leave at Firemaw because I had to pick up Mel. She had gotten back in town a little bit earlier than I had expected. So I had to leave Sardako and the crew, Bobka, Jerome, and all them crazy peeps. I had to leave them on Firemaw, and I felt kind of bad. But yeah, so Blackwing Lair, a lot of people are thinking I think it's just a misconception. So basically, there's these 5 different buffs.
The affixes.
Yeah, they're buffs, or they're just they show up in buffs, but they're basically debuffs. Like, it's basically like they make things harder in different ways. But I don't know. There might be one new one, but just to let everybody know, these were in Season of Mastery. And the only reason that I know this is because Duranosaur was one of the few 20,000 people, you know, that played. I think Nax ended in like 9,000 people rating or something like that. He rated Som all the way through Nax, and everything has different changes. They did something different in each raid, and this is what they did in Blackwing Lairs. They added these affixes, and you could choose. If you choose 3 or more, you get 1 extra piece of loot from the boss, and then I don't think you get anything for having all 5. You probably get something at the end for having all 5 active the whole time, probably. But no one really knows.
Didn't they say something about there wouldn't be an extra benefit for having more than 3?
Is
that just on just not extra effect on boss loot drops or something like that?
That's all we can figure out, is that you get nothing else for having more than 3. But I don't think that's confirmed by Blizzard, but I don't know.
But there should be something for all 5, because like otherwise people will just figure out what the 3 easiest to deal with are and only have those 3 active at maximum, and then the other 2 will never get used ever.
Yep.
100%.
Yep. But I will say it was annoying AF. Like, it was super annoying. I really liked the heat mechanic. I thought it was a really cool way. Sweaties had to go out of their way to get weird items to do it early, and they were way less power level trying to do it early. I really enjoyed the Molten Core World First race because I loved watching these guys wipe. It was awesome. And like that's what we want, as you know, as a viewer. And they were wiping because they were getting to the fire res cap with shit gear. And that was cool. Like, I really liked, and then other people could take it as they went, and there wasn't a huge onus to push past heat 3, besides, you know, a little extra loot on a last boss, better possible loot on the bosses throughout, but not more. You only got more for the Molten Core boss, but you did have a chance at like Onslaught Girdle off of Gar type of deal that could happen in Heat 3, but it was also just cosmetics, which the Brute Blade goes on your back if you transform it. I want that so bad. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think all of them go on your back. All of the swords and stuff go on your back, and maces, one-handers, go on your back when you upgrade them. So I thought that was a really cool change. But like, I thought it was really cool. This, I don't really like this. It makes things annoying. Like, you've got green. Green is where one person gets this green buff, and it's very obvious that you have it, right? You have to go and drop it way far from the raid. If you drop it in the raid, it's just AoE damage, boom, across the board. And it's like one person can wipe the raid easy, but it's not like something where you need GTFO or an add-on to tell you that you have it. You're glowing bright green, and you have this huge thing all around you. It's obvious you need to get out. So only idiots don't. Unless they just don't know that they have to get out. But only idiots would do it after the first time. Then you've got blue, which one person will randomly get have this blue light that comes down on them, like a pillar of light that it splashes out. You need at least 4 other people to come stack on that guy, or it's too much it's too much damage to kill. We were overdoing it. Like 10 or 12 people would go stack, and then we'd literally take no damage at all. Like shields would eat it.
Yeah, the people that are in range. Yeah,
yeah. It's a soak thing. So you just need 5 or more people to go soak it. And then so that's that. Then there's, I think orange was the one that speeds up and slows down time, but bronze. Okay, so it would speed up time and you'd run at super speed. I don't know if it sped up haste or anything like that. Like I think it just was movement speed. I've heard some people, Kago was talking something about haste, but I don't think it was haste. I think it was just, you know, speeding up you, but it also speeds up, adds the bosses, everybody. Like everybody goes fast and then everybody goes slow, but the slow was like way less slow than the speed buff. So it was almost like a buff because part of the time you were just able to run really fast. In some fights, cool. In other fights, like, you know, doesn't really matter. But there was that. There was black, which changes one mechanic for each boss, and it's different. I believe on the first boss, there's this big egg in the middle, and if you have black on, that dragon hatches during the egg breaking process, and it's basically a mini boss. Like it had a ton of XP, but it wasn't exactly hard. And then the last one, I don't remember. I'm doing this all from memory. Do you have a list up there? It looks like you're reading a list, Kev. What was the last buff that I'm missing?
The red, challenging the trial of red dragon flight when injured, burn for, well, it says 0 damage every 3 seconds. So probably not 0.
What this is if anybody in the raid goes below 90% health, at that point they get a debuff on them that you take you take fire damage, like just ticking fire damage, until you're healed to 100%. So if you go below, if anybody goes below 90, this pops on you and it's like a dot that's just on you. And then it doesn't leave until you're healed to 100%. And that's on everybody. So those are the buffs or debuffs or whatever affixes, whatever you want to call them. And you could choose up to 3 to get 1 extra piece of gear. It's going to be weird for us because we're going from Molten Core, Heat 2 and Heat 3, where you just get a epic ton of gear, right? So the gear's going to slow down quite a bit. We don't know if this is where they're going to keep it at, but you can put the buffs on. When you take them off, you can no longer put them back on. So the strategies are going to be weird because you're not going to be able to, like we do, you know, like we did the first time we did Heat 2, we turned Guard and Baron to Heat 1 and then turned back to Heat 2. We would not be able to click off turn off our stuff and then turn it back on with the current way that it's set. So you're always going to be going down to easy mode if you have a shit night.
Okay. You have to commit.
So I thought it was pretty cool. There were a lot of weird things. I believe it was the black buff that was doing it on Veil, but the tank, just after about a minute, I think it was a minute, would get like burning adrenaline or whatever, the one that blows you up, but it roots them in place. So melee would have to run out. Also, melee, I don't know if this was black doing it either, but melee was getting burning adrenaline and having to actually run out and just be done. But if you had fire res, those sets are going to be important because like they were used a bunch. Like when we were on Fireball, I was doing hands down the most damage out of any of the rogues. And I mean, by a ton. And it was because I put all my freaking fire res on. And so the stacks never got higher than 3 because I would like it counts down from like 8 seconds or something like that. I would resist everything for like 8 seconds and then it would drop off. So I was just never leaving. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that changes. And on Fire Moth specifically, if you've got 40 people, like you're going to be accruing this nature bomb. I think that's the black that does that too. I'm not sure, but this like nature bomb that like blows everybody up if you're stacked on too many people. So like melee groups are just gonna, like, it actually got easier when more people were dead. So having more people would be crazy, but it was funny because Sardako did a Alliance 40-man BWL, and we went into Vale, and he's like, yeah, we're going to just blow this up. Like, it dies way too quick. We only had 25. We found that we'd be wiping at about 5% every time because Melee had no idea that they were getting burning adrenaline, blowing up people in the raid. And like, it was a mess. But because he went in with 40, Vale died in seconds. And so therefore he just was like, oh, well, it's just a pushover. But with 25 people, it was a little bit now. And also, guys, we did not have a great comp. Like, we just took everybody who wanted to come. Like, we had like 8 rogues. I mean, so it wasn't the best comp overall, but yeah, it was interesting, and that's about all I got. You guys got anything to say about it?
I didn't get to do it, so I don't really have anything to add to it. I'm curious to see it myself. A feeling on that second boss, I'm not unbooning ever because I think
I think
I'm going to be destined to die every time.
Yeah, I think the play is not to unboon on that boss, right? Like, there's no reason if there's a chance that a mechanic can just murder you for you to die. But
well, I think this is what Table was asking for in our group chat. Like, you were asking for things that up the difficulty without being things outside the raid, like resistances and stuff. Like, this is kind of what you were wanting, right, Table?
Yeah, kind of like select, because it's the brand new set bonuses and stuff for specs that didn't have set bonuses or sets before is cool, but having to wear resist gear means that sometimes you can't wear all those pieces, which is unfortunate. Like for like Molten Core, for example, like having access to 2 new sets at the beginning of the game that I didn't have access to before, the tier 0.5 and tier 1, like having feral sets for both of those is awesome. But with resistance gear, I can't use both sets. Like running 4-piece is fun, or 6-piece 2-piece, like whatever is fun. But when you get into like Heat 3, you can't wear the 0.5 anymore. So like we did the whole quest line, did the whole grind to do the whole thing. And at Heat 3, like the highest levels of play, I'm not even using it, which is the opposite of what was true back in 2019 Classic. Like when the 0.5 stuff came out in, what was it, the AQ patch, people went back and did the quest line because a few of those pieces were actually good to use with those current levels of endgame raid gear. Like I went and got, like, I think it was the boots and the chest for my warrior to use for tanking. Because the boots had hit or something, and maybe the chest had hit too, like whatever the warrior set gave, and like they were good. They were really good to use, and I used them until Nax.
I only remember rogues going back and doing it, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't good for other classes. I've heard other people tell me it was good for other classes too. So I just only knew rogues that went back and did it, because if they wanted to be daggers, it was really good.
Yeah. But I mean, having these new sets for, new specs, new roles that some classes can do too, like, and then not being able to use some of that new gear because you have to wear resistance gear instead just feels kind of bad. Like when you look at it from that angle.
Yeah. And a lot of people say that, and I get that. But I mean, I use them outside of the raid. I have different sets for different things. I think it's neat like doing that prep.
Yeah, I used my double core when I soloed BRD or Emperor for that big fire guy. I just figured couldn't hurt, but on the fire resist. Plus, I needed to take off my 4-piece tank tier bonus, so I wouldn't be the world's shittiest magician and vanish and still be there.
Yeah, see, I use my fire resist when I'm going to do burning essence runs, because it makes it so as DPS spec I can solo that boss like without even being tank. I just have so much fire resist, like he doesn't really do any damage to me. So that's a fun thing too. I kind of feel bad for any warlock or mage that really wanted to be fire in PvP, because everybody's gear, tier 1 gear's got fire resist on it.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, fire's not really the PvP spec anyway, but
no, it's definitely not.
Like you maybe could have done some PvP stuff if it weren't for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like, so kind of circling back, the having like extra mechanics to deal with is my idea of an interesting way to increase difficulty. Like if you're going to give extra rewards for stuff and you want a way to increase the difficulty, I feel like I would rather it be a mechanics check than a gear check. And like the way that the heat system works in Molten Core is a gear check, where it's like the mechanics are, on some bosses, they are different from heat 1 to 2, but then to go from heat 2 to 3 is literally just a gear check. It's like the fights themselves aren't different. You just have different gear on. And like, to me, that's less interesting.
The only caveat I would give you is I think it's more interesting because it is a gear check, but that's why I thought the first clears were so neat, is because people had to use green rings that had 20 fire res on them, that had nothing else, like their stats were so much lower that the fights were so much longer that it was, way more difficult because of that. But then regular people can get there in the normal, time that was expected with gearing throughout the raid. That's why I thought it was neat.
I just feel like the same thing could be achieved by just having it be a mechanics check too. Like if you're talking about like the best players in the world that are like looking to do it first or whatever, you would think that the best players in the world are better mechanically than like some randos.
Yeah, and I feel like they'll kill it because of that.
Right. But also, like, if it's a gear check, that's like a weird, I don't know, it's gatekeeping in a way. It's a weird place to choose to put up a gate. Is that like if there's a DPS check on a certain boss, like that makes sense. There have been DPS checks on different bosses before, where like the raid as a whole has to be geared up to be able to do enough damage to kill the boss. Like that makes sense. But for it to be like for resistance to be the gear check, to me seems a little weird.
I don't like it on an entire raid, but I don't mind it on a boss like Saf and Nax when you need your frost resist. I mean, you don't need frost resist for anything else but that.
Yeah, right. Or like who run for nature, like that sort of thing. Because like in old school, 2019 Classic and Vanilla, like the fire resist fight was either Rag or Fire Maw. Like those were the two fire resist fights. And then the nature res fight was Huhuran. The shadow res fight was Twin Emps.
Ani was also a fire res fight, not in 2019 Classic, but in 2005 Classic. We definitely used fire res for the first few months of Ani.
Yeah, those breaths could chunk. And of course the frost res fight being Saf. So like I'm not opposed to like the odd fight here and there. Like Kef is saying, like, having one, a fight interspersed in with everything else that uses resist, or like, you want to look at items from TBC also, like Mother with shadow resist, stuff like that.
And like, just see people cheesing those. That's why in 2019 we didn't use fire res for literally anything. We didn't use it on Rag. It would have helped, but we were able to out DPS it, and he didn't submerge. Now he forced some submerges in SOD, but he never went long enough in Classic to submerge, so we didn't do it there. Fireball, we just ran out and dropped drop stacks, and unless you were a crazy like parse hungry guy, you weren't even grabbing fire res. And then same with Ani, we just knew the fight so well that we wouldn't get hit by press, and just a GFPP or two would be fine.
Yeah, I guess there's a difference too between like whether it's the whole raid that's gonna be wearing the resist or just the tank. Because like even if the whole raid wasn't wearing resist on like Rag, for example, like the tank,
the tanks had to have
fire res.
Definitely, the tanks were
same thing for like fire maw, like the tank would have fire res. But then for like sap, everybody had frost res, at least some frost res. Like you had to have enough frost res so that like a pally aura or a shaman totem or whatever would put you above the threshold to where you wouldn't take an unresisted hit. And that was kind of all you really needed. Like the healers could keep you up as long as you weren't taking unresisted hits. Like that was fine as far as like the healer's ability to keep you up and stuff. But like, I feel like I'm okay with them wanting to see what it would have been like to run this heat system for Molten Core, like just to see what it would be like to force everybody to wear fire resist. Like I'm okay with the experimentation, you know what I mean? Like they're trying new stuff, that's fine. Like I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them trying new stuff and seeing how it works out. So that'll never upset me. I just don't think that the thing that I learned from it, like I'm sure Blizzard learned plenty, like the devs learned plenty from this exercise. What I learned from it is that I don't think that that's an engaging way to increase difficulty, because it's just a gear check. Like I personally, what I learned is that I prefer mechanics checks over gear checks.
Well, it sounds like that's what the Black Trial's gonna do.
I thought it made it more natural, to be honest. I thought it made it where, because the amount of fire res that they're giving on the tier pieces, I felt like now that we're looking at doing Heat 3, like I don't have a bunch of crazy pieces that I need to go out and get to switch out for Heat 3, right? So it made it where it was like, it didn't necessarily seem like it was, I have to go farm all these weird pieces that I'm not getting in raid to drop so that I can do the next level. But I do the raid, and it like almost makes it more engaging and more fun for a little bit longer of a time, where you don't just go in there, smash everything, get annoyed that your piece didn't drop, and come back next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely will just agree to disagree. For me personally, I thought it was a neat ass thing. I thought it was neat that there was a hard cutoff, and people still found ways to, push it to the limit. Like they're like, all right, we're just gonna go ahead and count on the chamois totem, and that motherfucker better have his freaking totem up. And if he dies, the whole group dies, but other people that are a little bit more cautious like us are like, no, please have it above this, And I really think it's neat, but I do get the appeal of the other way. And I do get, I mean, the popular opinion is yours. Like I don't want to not be able to use my best gear. And I get that totally.
I think there is still something to be said. Like at the end of the day, no matter what, it's just a difference of opinion, and there's no way to be wrong if it's a subjective thing. You know what I mean? Like the fact that we have different opinions doesn't mean that we can't still enjoy the game together. It doesn't mean that we hate each other for having a different opinion. It's just a difference in opinion.
Yep.
But what I will say is interesting about the sure, the gear check thing. Like I would prefer that to not be the case, whatever. But like, if it was a thing where like if you're wearing BIS, you're capped anyway, regardless. Like if that was the case, then I feel like I'd be more receptive to that. Like all you got to do is just get BIS, like get the gear that you were gonna get anyway, the gear that you prefer to wear, and you're capped.
Well, I will say, you get full tier 1, you have enough to do Heat 3. Period. Boom, you're done there. Right.
Yeah, if it was something like that, if you're, if you have to like make like a minor sacrifice in order to get the amount that you have. So like, but then you can also look at things like things that make a difference for getting up to 226 for Heat 3, things that make a difference that people may not have like paid as much attention to earlier are things like having improved Mark of the Wild instead of just base Mark of the Wild. Like having improved Mark of the Wild gives you an extra 7 resist to work with, or 6 or 7, however much it actually is.
I think it's 7.
Like it gives you extra resist.
Goes up to 27 with improved.
Yeah, and baseline is 20. So like it gives you a little bit of extra wiggle room with Mark of the Wild. which is pretty cool. Like that's not something that people are always thinking about, is like having like Mark of the Wild used to only be considered because of like the small extra stats that you would get from Mark of the Wild. Like people didn't really think about the resist angle from Mark of the Wild. So like having that in there is interesting. And then like there's certain consumables that are getting used now that might not have been used otherwise.
Cool.
Like you know, like I mean jujus were a thing that people were using for stuff already. Like that's not a new thing. Like jujus have been used previously. But stuff like, you know, resistance potions, like the potions of resistance, the
rejuvenation potions.
Yeah, rejuve pots, like stuff like that. Like there's stuff that's being used now that didn't always get used. Like those
they got used by super sweaties at times, but now a lot of people are getting into it. One thing though, I did want to talk to you about. If this goes back to your video you did on fire resist. You had talked about Flask of Titans, and you made a lot of sense. You were like, would you rather have 1200 health or would you rather have 25 fire res? And I was like, yeah, makes sense. And I ran Flask of the Titans for the next 2 weeks. But then while I was in PTR, I was thinking, well, wait a second. Flask of Resistance gives you 25 of every resistance. I'm dealing with nature stuff I have to deal with here on Firemaw. We deal with shadow damage on different boss fights too. That 25 extra is going to all those different resistances. So you're better off on shadow fights, nature fights, everything because of that. And I was like, that might kind of change my tune for, you know, this next raid.
Yeah, if you're dealing with multiple schools, then yeah, I mean the value of the resist flask goes up a lot if you're dealing with more than one school. But when you're thinking about just fire,
yep.
Like I guess for the video that I did for the fire resist thing, like that was just talking about fire resist. But yeah, if you're dealing with multiple schools, the other thing
I still think there's still a. I mean, 1200 health is a lot, and it could be the difference of you getting one shot when you take aggro and you vanish a second too late. You know, other classes, you know, don't have that opportunity, but a rogue, you know, you're a second too late. Yeah. Yeah, Kev can't vanish anymore.
The tank set bonus.
Yeah, nope.
I guess like the way that I framed it in the video too is like it's
could.
Right, you could, but the way that I framed it in the video is like it's not just, you know, yeah, it's 1200 HP, but really a better way to look at it is 109 stam.
Yep.
Because the 109 stam times the, you know, the extra 10% from Heart of the Lion gives you that 1200 HP, or gives you the amount of stam that.
And if you think about one piece that could give you, there is one piece that could give you 25 fire resistance, right?
Right, but there's not one piece that'll give you 109 stamina. Like,
but there's also not one piece that could give you 25 of every resist too. Like, and I didn't even think about that aspect of it until I was dealing with the nature problem on Firemaw. But
yeah, I guess the better way to look at that is like however many schools you're dealing with simultaneously times 25. Like that's how many versus 109 stam.
Yep. But yeah, I thought it was it's going to be interesting. We didn't have any GFPPs either. It wasn't on the vendor, and most people didn't even realize. We all logged in once and created a character just to find out that if you logged out, or if you closed the game client after you logged in once and logged back in, you could copy your character. Bobka was very upset. He was like, "Are you telling me I just spent an hour making a character and I could have just copied my dear?"
That's a big old lol.
Yeah, but like we didn't have any greater protection potions. We had GFPPs that Sardako would like pass out to people, but they ran out pretty quick. If everybody could have copied over, you know, 20 of each, I mean, we could have blown through a couple of those fights a lot easier. So it's just kind of, it's going to be interesting to see what the meta goes to and what debuffs people are going to choose. I mean, green seems like a no-brainer as long as you have non-idiots in your group. But at the same time, it's a deparser, a huge deparser on every boss. And if you get green, your parse dead. So Are people going to want to do that one? Blue also, we have to go stack. Like, are you just going to designate range to do that? Like, are you going to, it's going to be interesting to see what everybody chooses,
This is kind of what I mean about like the extra mechanics thing though, is because like in Molten Core, like, we're dealing with the SOM mechanics, obviously. Like the mechanics are the same as they were in SOM, and they're not really that much different from original. Like there's a couple of extra things to worry about or whatever, but like you do the mechanics in the same way on Heat 3 that you would otherwise. You know what I mean? Like it's the same mechanics, it's just with the extra gear. Whereas in BWL, it's extra mechanics that you're doing, which means a different way to handle each fight, which means it's not going to be like in Molten Core, generally speaking, like think about like Shazra, for example. Like the mechanics of the fight is that Shaz teleports, summons a clone, and then does an AoE, right? Like that's always been the case. Like he did the AoE thing with the arcane damage. Like that was the thing in 2019 Classic. Like that's been a thing. The fight doesn't change at the higher difficulty, but in BWL, the fight will change at a higher difficulty because those extra mechanics mean that you have to approach the fight differently than you would have otherwise. And that's what I think is interesting. And that's why I prefer that style.
Yeah.
Because it shakes it up. It feels like a new fight. It's the same boss, but it feels like a new fight.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out and what we kind of as a community decide on. And even, they might come out and say this was bugged and you can't do this, but there are certain fights where I would want a different 3 combinations. But if you can only put them on once and take them off once, then that limits your ability to change it every time. So it could be like you're going to have to probably choose which ones you want to do and really kind of like look into it. Cause like green
bronze looks kind of fun. I don't know, but like
bronze
if you
seems
get
like
blue,
a bus almost. Like a buff almost.
You get blue and you're a melee and you're in the melee group. I mean, do you really have to do anything or are you just going to split with the rest of the melee?
And
Same
even
with
for range, like the range just stack. The only fights that'll be difficult on are fights where you don't want to stack for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like if it goes on a tank.
And reds.
Right. Yeah, true. If it goes on a tank, then if it's a boss that cleaves, then that's dangerous for the melee.
I mean, I have that
or you have the off
vanish.
True.
Take the 50% reduction, only get one buddy to stack with me or something.
Well, and,
or get a pain sup or something, not a bark skin though, because that's only fizz.
And if you look at red's really not bad at all. If you're stacking,
the healers just deal with it. It doesn't affect us.
Well, but it's not just that. If you're stacking fire res for a certain fight, because of that, like if you're stacking fire res, you're going to die way, way less quickly as if you're not. So, heals would be able to catch up on that pretty easy. So
and green seems the worst.
Green's just a parse killer. I mean,
so it seems like we already talked ourselves into the fact
black.
That like the meta will be, not green. Whatever combination it is, just not green.
Well, but it might be green to start out for Prog, because it is an easy one to get by. Very easy as long as, people have eyes and can see a huge green.
People have eyes.
Yeah.
It's like the file on the Lich King fight.
There's also,
it won't come out as fast.
It's not listed here. There's also black. I think black's the only new one to Sod. And I think that's why it's not in these categories. But black's the one that changes one thing mechanic wise across each boss. And we aren't exactly sure what it changes yet. So there is 5 total. So just remember that. So we'll have to see. It'll be cool, but unless anybody has anything else.
Either way, that's exactly what I mean, though, is the fact that there's stuff that we don't know that we have to figure out. And the fights are going to play out differently now than they did in 2019, just because there's that new stuff. Like that's exciting to me. That's what I think is interesting about SOD and about doing it this way with the extra mechanics. Is that things are going to be different, and that's fun.
Do these things just pop off whenever or only in combat? Because like if a rogue is getting all those
only in combat, only in
Okay.
combat with the bosses. They don't even pop off, I don't think, during trash. I didn't see them pop
Okay.
off at all during trash, or
so that could grief a rogue that's disarming all of those slow traps.
Oh yeah, well
Just
those
suddenly
get
get blue
changed.
trial and are like, guys, fucking get over here. I'm gonna die.
I don't know what changed those. I don't know if they're changed across the board, but those changed too. There's ones that can't be disarmed now that do an AoE electricity arcane damage to you. So you have to zigzag through the room. No more hugging the wall the whole way there. And then
Sounds like a DPS rogue thing.
And then on what's his name, you get to at the end there, before you fight Firemaw, the boss there. You have to fight him like inside of the thing. So rogues have to go possibly vanish and kill a trap during the fight. Then he moves all the way to the front of the room, so you have to fight through all of the whelps that you didn't clear, because you can't clear them. They'll just keep spawning until the boss is pulled. You have to get through all of them and the traps again, and then kill him on the other side. He doesn't move, at least. He stays in one spot, but it's definitely upgraded difficulty, and it's interesting. I mean, we one-shot it pretty easy, but it's,
okay, good. It sounded rough.
It's pretty rough though. We had some good heals, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be new and different and interesting, and yeah, and I don't know what changes what, or what's baseline or what's what, because we just tried to do it with everything turned on, and we ended up just only turning off green.
Just full chaos mode.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I don't think anybody got past Cro-Magnus that I know personally, but I was thinking back to so all of these things aren't very new to SOM, and there's only one content creator that I know that went through SOM, and Duranosaur could be killing it with YouTube videos right now on each of the new boss mechanics in each of the new raids, and he's like the only one I can think of that actually played SOM all the way through. And that information would be so good right now. So anybody listening to this that checks out his streams or checks out his YouTube videos, just help him come back to us and tell him to join our raid so that we have all that info.
That's cheating. I feel like the way that I kind of see Blizzard's decision to use the SAW mechanics again, but then add more stuff for SOD, the way that I see that is the same kind of way that Blizzard brought back Nax for Wrath, because Nax was something that not a lot of people got to see in vanilla. Like, not a lot of people got to see original Nax. Like, there are some people that saw it, but not a ton of people. Not as many as Blizzard wanted to see it, so they brought it back for Wrath so that more people could see and put it as like the intro raid. So that's kind of the way that I see these SOM mechanics. Like, not as many people went through the entirety of SOM and saw these mechanics. Like, there's so many of us. Like, I don't think I've met a person in game yet that has seen all of the SOM mechanics all the way through. Like, the most that people have seen is like the Molten Core mechanics, because like I know some people that participated in Road to Rag, and that's about it. But like, I don't know anybody other than like Duranosaur and like a couple of the people that were in his raid that got to see the BWL ones and the AQ ones and all the Nax ones. Like, that's not nearly as many people saw those. So Blizzard bringing back the SOM mechanics is kind of cool, because I get to see the SOM mechanics when in person when I didn't get to see them before. So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I never
Well,
saw
and they didn't
them
really
either.
have much of a base to determine if they were good or not, right? Like, not as many
True.
people were able to see them. It's kind of like them bringing back Nax after,
Yeah, that's what he said.
like, the original. Yeah.
Definitely.
I think it's cool.
Yeah. I was a little upset I didn't know going into Molten Core, because it made that first raid night a little bit rocky. But yeah, besides that, I was fine. Like, it's cool that they're bringing them in. They're trying different stuff. I'm glad that my fire resist gear is going to be worth it for for some of the fights in this. It makes me very, very happy. So I just, did a lot of work on that, a lot of money, and I'm glad that it's not going to just be thrown in the garbage can, and it's going to still be, something worthwhile. But that being said, let's move into... Thank you very much for checking out Warcraft Reloaded podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any future content.